They call me the pineapple of esports because I've got this rough exterior, but I'm actually sweet on the inside. Also, people have holy wars over whether I can just exist and some people can enjoy me, or I must be eradicated from the earth like you nutters going on and on about pineapples on pizzas as though that's some sort of like meaningful conversation. So you know what? Forget about pineapples on pizzas. Put them in your drinks. How about this new flavour pineapple cocktail from Gamersops? You know what? You can get this weekend 20% off, unlike the usual 10%, with the code Thorin, Thorin, at gamersops.gg. Now, NBK just effectively retired from CSGO and became not even a Valorant pro, a Valorant streamer at the moment. Now, that might not seem like a big deal to some fans, like even the ones who acknowledge he was a great player or like a Hall of Fame or legendary player once. If they've only seen him in the last couple of years, particularly in OG, they might think he was just an okay player. You know, he wasn't a guy changing the world. He wasn't some incredible force that you had to recruit in your team. It was even debatable whether he should have stayed on OG or not. I mean, I heard the comms. I thought he was worth keeping, but I can understand why even they might think we can get someone different. I don't know about more experienced and better in that sense, but certainly better at the game currently. But I don't think those fans, and maybe people who are only thinking of the last few years, I don't think they actually realise what an incredibly unique and decorated player we're losing out. This is a person that's essentially irreplaceable in the Counter-Strike scene so long as they want to be a pro and still maintain a decent enough level because of what they bring to the table and what they've done in their career. You cannot fuck with this man's track record. It is unbelievable. I'm not exaggerating. You'll see in this video, there has never been a player in World Counter-Strike like NBK who has done the things he has done in the way he's done them. That's the key part, the way he has done them. In terms of team success, hence the name of this video, you could pretty convincingly argue NBK is the most relevant piece in the history of CSGO. Now, those are enormous words, right? He wasn't even on one of the GOAT teams of all time. He wasn't on a team that had an era. He wasn't on... he wouldn't probably be most people's top 10 of all time, etc. Like, that might sound like, whoa, where are you getting that from? Like, he was a good player years ago at the beginning of the game, and he was, you know, he was still relevant at the end, I guess, in a way, Thorin, but come on, that's too much. Well, how about this? Let's go with the team angle first, because everyone loves to just make this a team game, so let's look at their team success and then make, oh, that one person did it all. Okay, so we'll just start from that angle, and then we'll work our way to the eye test, the qualitative angle. In terms of team status relevance, how relevant was his team? Obviously, the best thing to be is to be the number one team or to be an elite team and a contender. And then after that, to be like a team that's like a top 5, top 6 team. And then beyond that, if you care about top 10, top 20, you can do that. I'm not going to do that. I'm talking about relevance. I'm talking, you got to be like top 6, let's say, in this scenario. Right? First of all, I'm not going to count this for most of what I'm talking about, but I will point out, at the end of Source, he was on the absolute best team, Very Games, for the last, year or two of the game. I wasn't a Source follower, but I know he's a part of that team, even though he's very young. Then CSGO began in 2012. For the period of time we had the game, realistically, it was what, 3 to 4 months of like top competition. He was on a top 2 team. He was on Very Games. Then the next year, he was on the best team in the world in 2013 at one point in time. Very Games again, but the one where they had shocks in sort of going towards the autumn into the winter. They were the best team in the world. They beat NIP a bunch of times. They won all these tournaments. They were top 4 a whole bunch of times. They basically, if they won one of those majors, that one in 2013 or the one in early 2014, you could have even made the argument they could have had like a mini era, or they might have even had an era if you go back. Then he was on the best team, Titan again. In early 2014, they won the DreamHack Invitational. They went into the first major as the favourite. They were number 1 online. They were winning tournaments online. They were the number 1 team at that point in time. Then later in the year, he was on a top 2 team in terms of the LDLC team, which obviously next year would become Envious. They were the only team, they were the team right behind Fnatic. Obviously, they eventually did overtake them and win the major, but they were still top 2 at that point in time. He was on the best team in the world at a point in 2015 with the Envious lineup that had Kenny S and Apex instead of Smiths and Shocks. They had not only the major win of DreamHack Cluj, but as part of that, they had this run where once they changed their lineup, they had 4 out of 6 events they won. One of them was IM Gamescom, which was sort of a weirdo event, but we'll count that. They were second at ESL Cologne, the major. The only mess up really was just coming top 6 at like ESL Dubai. It was like technically the ESL ESEA Pro League Invitational held in Dubai, but that's just the nightmarish world that ESL's created for us. Then they won DreamHack Open London, beat essentially the TSM squad in the final. They won Gfinity Champion of Champions, which is a 4-team tournament, but it's the 4 best teams in the world at the time. They won that, and they won DreamHack Cluj, the major. So they won 4 out of 6 of those events, and they were in the finals of 5 out of 6. He was a part of that team. He was one of the better players in that team. 2016, they had a down year, but at the beginning of the year, they were still top 3 to 4. They obviously won that event that was in, like, I think it was in, like, Lithuania or some bizarre place that still had some good teams at it. It wasn't until the major MLD Columbus they really sort of had fallen off. Then he was on a top 3 to 4 team at a point in 2017. Obviously, the G2 Super Team. Remember, they did win ESL Pro League, I think it was Season 5. They did win DreamHack Masters Malmo. They were in, like, the top 4 of Epicenter. This was a team that certainly they could have done a lot more. Obviously, next year they even were top 8 at the major, but they had their issues. But there was a time when you win in tournaments like that, you're placing highly. Yeah, you're a top 3 to 4 team. You come to 2018. Okay, that was a down year. He got benched. He had the whole battle with ochs over who'd be the IGL. They gave him his chance early, then they took it away, and then they brought in Existence, and he was off for the while and had to go basically and make the project that became Vitality. But then Vitality 2019 comes along. It's a top 2 to 3 team in the world at some point in time. We're going to go back to, say, the summer period. They're the team that won CS Summit over Team Liquid. By the way, if Team Liquid doesn't lose that series, they would have had the best streak in history by far of Series 1 in a row. Vitality also won ECS, by the way, a tournament that Astralis was in attendance at. They were top 2 in Cologne, one of the biggest events of the year, and they were top 8 of the major and actually were shockingly put out in the quarterfinals, and many thought they could have gone to the final that time round. Then you come to 2020, we go online largely. It was in a top 5 to 6 team at some point in 2020. Like, you look at the autumn/Flashpoint 2 period going into the winter, they were second at Flashpoint 2. They were third at CS Summit Season 8, which by the way had loads of the European teams, like it was an RMR. And they were second at IEM New York Europe version, because Nightmare ESL's back with their dystopian, fucked up Orwellian way of naming tournaments. This is Relevance, boys. Still top 5 to 6 in 2020. I started the story in 2012 if I'm only talking about CSGO, forget Source. And then, if you came to this year, I wouldn't really bother talking about this year, but they began the year as like the 7th best team or something if you went on HLTV's thing. So if we review this, and I'll only do the CSGO part for a moment, he was on the best team at some point in a year for 3 years in a row, 2013, 2014, 2015, straight. Then he was on a top 2 team at some point for 5 years in a row, the first 4 and then 2019. He was on a top 3 to 4 team at some point in a year for 8 years straight in CSGO. And he was on a top 5 to 6 team at some point in the year for 9 years straight. Straight. I mean, you're going to say, well, they would have started 2018 off still as a top-ranked team, wouldn't they? Because the way it worked. That's why I'm saying at some point. Now, listen, I'm not saying it's like he was on a top 5, 6 team the whole time for 9 years. No, I've been very explicitly clear. But put it this way, who are you going to pick that's got a resume like that? By the way, the only players who'd be close to some of that crazy shit would be the core of the greatest Astralis team, Device, Depreze, because obviously before that, they were in TSM and then they were in Dignitas. Very good teams. By the way, they only get to start from 2014 onwards. They can't say what I've just said about NBK there. They wouldn't qualify. So this resume, by the way, that was just what top teams are on, is also bonkers. He is one of the most decorated players in history. I didn't say French players, I said players. He's won 2 majors, by the way, with different lineups. They changed 2 of the players in one of them. He's been in 3 major finals, again with 2 different lineups. He's played in the semi-finals or better of 5 majors. He's been in a team that plays top 4 at 14 events in a row. In terms of the LDLC NVS lineup of late 2014, early 2015. These are all unbelievable stats, by the way. He's been 7 times top 8 at a major, which gives you a legend slot. Or just with 5 different lineups, by the way, representing multiple different organisations. This guy is unbelievable. You know the whole thing, like he's a journeyman. Mate, he's the greatest journeyman to ever play Counter-Strike, let's be real. He's played in every major except Face It London, the one where he was just benched from his team. And then he was swapping over, obviously, to the team that became the Vitality. He has won 20 LAN trophies. I'm going by HLTV.org's one here because I didn't want to just have to look it all up myself because I was going to quickly quote a bunch of this stuff. They sometimes have 1 or 2 off, but okay, 20 LAN trophies. By the way, I looked it up. In terms of like a significant tier 1 LAN trophy, because I'm not going to count that like global esports thing from early 2016, There have been 5 different years in CSGO history where he won a significant Tier 1 trophy. 2013, 2014, 2015, 2017 and 2019. So 2013, you can take your pick from that. There was obviously events like, what would they even have been? It was Star Ladder, ESL. I mean, would it at the time? I think it was EMS, so ESL 1 Major Series. You go to 2014, obviously all the tournaments that you win with, let me think. What did they win? Technically the DreamHack one would have been one. It was actually a stacked invitational, that first one. 2015, the major. 2014, he won the major as well. 2017, what would he won? ESL Pro League, Masters Malmo. 2019, look, you saw Vitality, they won ECS. That's not exactly a joke of a tournament, is it? That's a pretty legit tournament. Now, to contrast this, Forest has won 1 major and 22 LAN trophies. Is that right? Forest has only won 2 more trophies than NBK in CSGO. He comes from Sweden, by the way, the most OP country of all time in Counter-Strike. Zyrathenia, you think, how successful Zyrathenia. He's one of the best players in the world, all those times, top 4, top 3. He's won 2 majors, same as NBK, and 13 LAN trophies. That's right, he's actually quite far behind NBK in terms of LAN trophies. How about this? It's what I said in a video I made. I'll actually just read it out for you. Considering France has not had a world number 1 in over 4 years, I think that actually obviously wouldn't hold anymore because this was in early 2020 I made it, and Vitality technically could have been considered world number 1 at some point, I'm sure, around the autumn of 2020. NBK's level of success must be put into the context of his pace to be understood. So Device, star of the Astralis team that has won an enormous amount of trophies, has only 2 more trophies than NBK. Olaf Meister, the player at the top of the list in terms of titles won, famed start of 2015 Fnatic, the team with an era. He only has 3 tournament trophies more than NBK in terms of LAN trophies. This is an unbelievable individual. And then how about this? He comes from the French scene. That's important context right there. That's a scene that's full of roster moves and betrayals and decisions made on impulse or whim. They sometimes had an inability to communicate with each other, get past problems, or evolve their playing styles. They would run into brick walls. So you have to do very shrewd moves if you want to stay relevant and keep winning trophies and have top placings as a French player. And this guy was the Littlefinger-esque kingmaker, as I dubbed him, of the French scene. If you go into the description box, there's a Deserto article, which is sort of like a text version of the video I did. I'll also link the video, where basically it's an old article I did where I updated it and I show you what I'm talking about in terms of all the different years and the roles he played. So to accomplish what he did coming out of the French scene, I think it's absurd. Like, this guy only went to international teams in late 2019 when he came to OG. Only him and Apex managed to play with all the best in-game leaders in French history and all the best superstar players. So he played with Existence, Happy, Alex. He played with Zewu, Kenny S, Shocks. Only him and Apex did that, at least at that point in time. And that's despite, this is how you know the guy was a special player. He was never the best player in France, and he was never the in-game leader, right? Those are the players that are the power movers and shakers normally, who get to pick who they play with, who get recruited first out of everyone. Apex and Shocks, in terms of LAN trophies, this is, I'm going off when it was LAN, they have 15 trophies each. Happy only has 9. NBK has 20. This guy's unbelievable. Now, DJ Esports is unbelievable too, because it's the world's only crypto esports odds matrix. And you can get a free $5 bet by reaching out to the customer service team on the DJ Esports Discord. I'll put it in the description below. And you'll also get put in my VIP channel where they have free crypto drops coming. Now, by the way, when they say a free bet, you can't just get the $5 and then take it out of the account. Obviously, you have to bet it, and then once there's a turnover of $20, you can withdraw it. That's right, it's a free bet, not free money. See what I did there? Now, I would call NBK, stylistically, the French Swiss Army knife. Might sound scuffed, but obviously you can't just say Swiss Army knife. You can't say French Army knife. Like, you get the premise of what I'm saying. He was one of the best lurkers, sort of like 2013, 2014 period. One of a better entry player. Pretty good entry player, 2017 particularly. Did it sometimes in 2016 as well, whether it was in NV or whether it was in G2. He was one of the best support players in the world in 2014. Like, he was arguably better than Zipnix at that time, by the way. And his ability to help other players, probably unparalleled in terms of players in history. Like, he's the guy where, you remember all those highlights of Happy on Inferno when they were amazing on CT said, yeah, NBK used to play the bitch roles and play the hard part of the B-site for Happy. You remember when OG, their best map was Inferno, and they were having all these close, amazing games. Like Issa, I thought was terrible in the pit. NBK played the A site with him, and when I heard the comments, it was basically brain controlling Issa and giving him a chance to actually do something in the game. On a map like Nuke, one of the best when he played in teams like Titan. He was a guy who had to play the ramp room, an incredibly hard position to play back in the meta that we had back then. It wasn't just yard takes all the time like it is in the modern day. And also, he is famous for collaborating with whoever his in-game leader is to set up the base of the tactics of the team, and his great communication ability to play all the roles means that then he becomes an incredibly valuable piece, but it just doesn't always show up on the stat sheet. I always called him like the best right-hand man or sidekick of the in-game leaders. That's why I understand why he thought he could be an in-game leader himself. In terms of mentality, guy has an unbelievable mentality. Has one of the best work ethics I have ever seen from a pro. He is a true professional in that sense. Even when his team isn't the best or he isn't even on a team, he would still be working hard, maintaining his game, thinking about the game, working on strengths, trying to shore up weaknesses. He's a guy who, the reason he played all those roles is not because he had to. He just thought, right, I'll do whatever role is needed. So what haven't we got in the team? Right, I'll go and learn that role and do that then. He's a guy who would, unlike some other people in the French scene, make harsh cuts devoid of emotion. In fact, one thing some of the French players didn't fuck with our NBKs. They thought it was just like a robot. He does not have the passion. He is not la joie de vivre. Like, I mainly just did that to do the accent. Like, I liked that about him. He was a true pro. He was like a Kobe/Michael Jordan. Like, I just cut this guy and get him out of here. Like, get the right guy in. I don't care that we just wanted him. Like, he's not going to make it anymore. He was pushing that side of it when the others were all over the fucking place. Like, we have to play with the emotion. I am just an emotional player. I cannot do that. Like, this guy actually got it. No wonder he eventually ended up going international. And also, in line with what I just said, one of the best ever at coming back from slumps. If he slumps, first of all, there's probably something going on in his life. Secondly, sometimes you can't always control when he's not as good at the game. And thirdly, he'll come back from them. I've seen him do it again and again and again and again. I can bet my money that NBK becomes relevant again when he does that. So he might not have a current place in the scene. He might not be considered relevant right now. A lot of teams wouldn't pick him up, right? But look at his history. And in my opinion, when money comes back to the space, when we have more lands, if he wants to, when he works, he can come back and he can be part of a top 2, 3, 4 team in the world again. I believe he can do it.
This is Kenya's the #1 opera in the world, according to Thorin. You're watching Thorin channel, that is also known as the #1 existence fan in the world.
This video was kindly supported by Eddie, Kris with a K, Lager15, Shenlong, Wisetown, Zachary Carter, Zack Schmidt, ochs, Alexander Rao, Animosity, Kris, Dean Tanglis, Doomseer, ErikHillestad, Hades, Jdubs, Jensen Goh, John Shelton, Joseph Ginsburg, Kovacevicd, Tobias Bernasconi, Zoomba, Zyrathenia, Bot Pounder 420, and a special thanks, as always, goes out to Jerky's Minion. Would you like to suggest a topic or guests to come on my shows? Do you want to ask me a question in one of those video AMAs where I might even insult you in a funny or maybe obnoxious manner? Do you want teasers for my upcoming content, things I'm thinking of, what I might be changing? Do you want to take part in one of those long discussions where we go all over the place with the big donators? Well, if so, put your money where your mouth is using the Patreon link in the description box below to join the Screwluminati today.